Violence against young girls in India may have reached a horrifying new low. Police are investigating the alleged rape of a 3-year-old in her Bangalore school. This is the latest in a series of brutal crimes that have outraged the country. With us is Carron Mann, a Policy Director for Women International. Carron, how do you describe this? Absolutely horrendous.
Okay. Yes, I think that's certainly one of the words we could use. It's horrific. It's for several reasons, not least of all the age of the child, but also the fact that it happened in a school environment which should be safe for girls. I think we do need to look at the wider context of this. The UN released a report in the summer that said that 1 in 10 girls suffer sexual abuse.
This is across the world?
But this is globally as well. It's certainly not an incident that happens only in poor countries or conflict-affected countries. This is globally. Likewise, globally, we have 35% of women suffer violence at some point in her lifetime.
Why? Why does this happen?
It's largely due down to gender inequality, and it's the attitudes that enforce harmful notions of masculinity. It's also around control, and it just feeds into a wider concept of gender inequality.
And that's a very difficult cycle to get people out of, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's very difficult. But one of the ways of dealing with it is by dealing with communities, all members of community. Violence against women and girls isn't something that it happens directly, of course, to women and girls, but it affects everyone. But
it's interesting that, I mean, we're talking about this as an issue that affects civil society, but also affects war-torn countries as well. And we saw in June this conference where Angelina Jolie opened this London summit about the use of sexual violence as a weapon of war. I wonder, do these sorts of awareness-raising conferences actually do any good if you're looking at something much more structural, much more cultural?
The long term, it needs to be addressed in the long term, fundamentally. It's not something that we're going to see change overnight. One of the focus of the Ending Sexual Violence and Conflict Summit, which is the Angelina Jolie summit you were talking about, was very much around tackling impunity. And that's an important part of it. But to actually prevent sexual violence and to prevent violence against women and girls, it is very much around breaking down those social norms and those harmful practices that target women and girls. And that is a massive cultural change that takes a long time and involves working with all members of community, and particularly promoting women's participation in leadership positions, but also working with the women's rights groups who are already on the front line providing services to women and girls who've suffered violence.
Tell us more about your organisation, Women for Women.
Women for Women International is 20 years old. We've worked with over 420,000 women globally. We work in conflict-affected countries across the world, 4 in sub-Saharan Africa, Afghanistan, Iraq, and 2 in Eastern Europe. We provide women with an opportunity to go on an economic empowerment program over 12 months. It provides them with income generating skills so they can put food on the table, send their kids to school, get their lives back on track. It also provides them with human rights education, and it also provides them with a safe space with 25 other women who they go through the whole program with. And for many of the women that we work with, most of whom have never gone to school or who've suffered violence, who've lost members of family during war, this is the first time that they've had that safe space to learn skills, to gain knowledge, and to have a support network.
And you're giving them a sense of worth.
Yeah, it's helpful. It's always about supporting women, and it's very much about supporting them to regain their dignity, to put their lives back on track.
In your opinion, are laws tough enough when anything like this horrendous thing happens? It's good to see people pay. Do you think laws are tough enough, or things do have to change?
That's a good question. I think part of the problem is that we do have many international standards that protect women's rights. To varying degrees, those are implemented in domestic laws, and to a much lesser degree, those laws are effectively implemented. Like I said before, part of effective implementation of laws is about making sure that you have services and women participating in the implementation of those laws, whether it's female judges or female police officers, or that the ministries responsible are adequately resourced.
So when you work with women from these backgrounds where they're effectively subjugated, you take a group of women out of a culture which has held them down. You say, this is what you are worth, this is what you are due, and then you put them back into that culture.
That's not how we work, sorry. We work very much with communities, so we have quite a long engagement process with communities where we go and engage with communities. You bring everyone with you? We go to the communities. And we also, I think it's kind of unique to Women for Women, is that we have country offices that are locally staffed. It's not like I would go to Congo and deliver this program, because I mean, that was just not going to be effective. And a lot of it is around, because we work with local staff, we know what's locally relevant and what's going to work with women. So we're very much about being in the community and working with women directly, but all members of the community.
We don't have very long left, but I want to ask you about Dr. Mukwege, because this is a man who really has battled. He's just won a very prestigious award, and this is a man who was fighting for the rights of women and who came under an assassination attack himself, which shows how big this subject is.
Yeah, Dr. Mukwege's hospital in Pansy is very important. It's been operating now for I think over 10 years now, and it's certainly, I think, one of the strongest aspects of the hospital is that it effectively acts as a one-stop shop. So by going there, you're not kind of labelled as a survivor of sexual violence, but it provides a range of services for women, so you can go without being labelled. And I think the assassination attempt on his life, as you mentioned, is very pertinent to a lot of the drivers and the root causes of sexual violence, because it's only when he started talking about it in the broader sense and as the individuals responsible that he came under attack.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Carron.
Thank you very much.